Look at all these faces. This is so exciting.
Welcome, welcome. Wow, hello. Okay. Thanks
Massive,
for being
yay.
with us, you guys. All right, well, I think we have
Ready?
most everybody started. We'll just let them in as they come in. So go ahead.
Okay, you guys, we're so excited for tonight. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being with us. We know your time is so very precious, and we are so grateful that you're spending it with us tonight. I'm going too fast. Probably because we're all crazy busy, and midlife is a challenging time for all of us as women, especially to navigate all the different things when it comes to our health. And we're all always seeking out ways to help ourselves feel better. So, if any of you don't know me, my name is Jamie Peterson. I am so excited to be here. Quickly, a little bit about me. I have been in this channel for the last 15 years. I absolutely love it. In my opinion, it's the only way to be really successful is because you get to help play a part in others be successful. And so I'm so grateful that I get to do this with you, or if you're a friend of someone that I get to work with, we're just so glad you're here. I don't know about you. I'm 47 and I can feel all the midlife things kicking into high gear for sure. So I can't wait to learn tonight. I'm sure you are feeling the exact same way. It's going to be really, really special. So what we're going to cover tonight is a few things here. First, we're going to introduce you to our guest speaker and hear her perspective on menopause, perimenopause, and the latest research that you should definitely know about. We'll introduce you to a simple lifestyle, some simple lifestyle changes that you can make to your nutrition, your supplements, and everything else to help yourself because we all need that extra help for sure. And then finally, we're going to leave you with a helpful guide.
Ooh, Jamie got muted.
Did I all of a sudden become muted?
Sorry, Jane.
What? So
Go
how
ahead.
okay. Did did anyone hear what I just said or no?
We got you up to lifestyle changes and helpful nutrition points.
Okay. And then finally, the recommendations and guide we're going to make sure you take home with you because we want you to walk away from this event fully equipped to make some small changes and maybe some big changes in time. I think it's going to be a really special less than an hour together. And from here, I'll kick it off to Jen.
Oh,
Jen, you're muted as well.
Okay. I'll just echo what Jamie said. I'm so glad that you guys are here. We knew this was going to be a big event because we're all in this midlife moment. And I don't know about you, my symptoms were the hot nights, just a little, sweat here and there on different nights. And then I started getting like crazy anxiety that I'd never had before. So I'm super excited that you guys decided to come here because hopefully this is going to help in some way. My name is Jen Griswold. I'm in DC and I have the pleasure of being in this industry for about 15 years. Jamie and I have been business partners. We grew up in the same Montana town. And my background officially as a career was in the military. I went to the Air Force Academy and was an Air Force officer in aircraft maintenance. And so once I started having kids, I had to shift into a different career and started as an entrepreneur, which is how I found my way here, which is so exciting. And I'm super excited to invite my friend Simran Rattan to join us tonight because she is what I'm calling the Dr. Mary Claire of Canada. We met at a conference, at a networking conference, and I was so blown away at all her knowledge. So let me officially introduce you to her. She's the founder, owner, and medical director of Cartar Health, which specializes in hormones and lifestyle optimization, taking a comprehensive approach to preventative health. She's an expert who focuses on empowering individuals to live high quality lives and experience vibrancy in all aspects of their soul, mind, and physical health. She has expertise in bioidentical hormones, preventative integrative medicine, women's health, men's hormonal health, spiritual health, and mind-body medicine. And she likes to bring a holistic perspective to her practice. You can see all of her qualifications here. She's one heck of a doctor, and we're really excited to have her here and have just a casual chat about menopause. So Simran, tell us first of all a little bit more about you as a human. I know you have two kids, you're in Canada. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me here, guys. I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite topics, women's health. And so, I do have two kids. They might be running around. Hopefully, they don't jump in on this call when they're here. But as you guys all know, we can't control our kids. They're 8 and 10, and I've been doing medicine specifically when I first started it in a way that I actually didn't enjoy, to be honest with you. I went into medicine because I was a meditation teacher. I taught meditation. I still am a meditation teacher. Taught like when I was a teenager, taught so many different age groups. And I was really drawn to that spiritual aspect of a person's health, like their deeper meaning, how do they connect to it? And so I wanted to help people live from a place of deeper meaning. And I thought, hey, why not go into medicine? That'll help me do that, right? Wow, that was a bit of a rude awakening. Well, I did learn medicine. I do think it has a really valuable place. I love being a doctor, but I did lose that joy as I started getting into the nitty gritty of what medicine is about, which is disease oriented medicine. And it really just helped me to navigate myself in a different perspective because I ended up becoming in this autopilot mode where I was seeing my patients. And I think I was really lucky to recognize that in my first 5 years of practice. Actually, a lot of people don't notice it until later on that they're kind of in this autopilot mode. And I ended up deciding, hey, I went into medicine to help people in all aspects, body, mind, and soul. Why am I just looking at disease, the physical part of the person? And so I ended up going into something called integrative medicine. If you ever heard of Dr. Andrew Weil, I trained with them and I did a more of a holistic approach. Now, I took that approach and then helped so many women and men change their lifestyle. And they did really well with lifestyle changes. But then there was like, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, and I still feel like crap. And I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't know. So I'd get their blood work done, take a look at their blood work and go, oh shoot, everything's normal. What do I do? And normal, what I've learned now, isn't optimal health. And I delved into hormones, specifically bioidentical hormones, which I'll kind of discuss a little bit about the difference with that when I was actually in a residency, which is like 16 years ago. And when I did that, I was shot down. I was like, no, you don't do hormones in women. You don't even use even complementary stuff. I was really interested in supplements and botanicals. And I was like, wait, there is some evidence here on certain things. They're like, no, 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 we don't use that. We don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I just have to get through school back then. So I was like, okay. So I went into all that and I realized after doing that I didn't have, when people used to come to my office and like just drop packets of like I'm like no kidding, like bags. I'm not sure if any of you are guilty of this, but to your doctor, I'm taking like 10 supplements. What do I take? And I was like, I didn't have the confidence at that time, and that's why I delved into doing more of this. And what I realized was that there is a very massive aspect of lifestyle, which is 60 to 80% of all chronic diseases are prevented through lifestyle. But then there's this aspect that we're missing, which is the hormonal piece. How do that help you to stay healthy as you get older? How do we help women and men? And of course, since we're here, we'll specifically talk about women, but how women don't even know that they can get this help. And so I went into the health and wellness field more because I really have the passion to help people to not only prevent diseases and feel great today, but also improve their quality of life as they age, because we don't really think of medicine as improving quality of life. We think of it as just prolonging life with medicines, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this. And there's so much more we can go into about all of women's health from young to old with hormones, and we'll get into it. But I love that you're so passionate about the population of women, because we work with all women, and we got into this because we really love the concept of wellness and being preventative versus reactive. So is there anything more about the population of women that you're extra passionate about?
Yeah, it's really about women understanding that they don't have to feel bad as they get older, because women don't know this. And I know it sounds so funny, but you guys are here probably because you you feel that way maybe too. It's like you've seen your family doctor, they say everything is normal, and you're like, okay, I don't feel normal. Something's wrong. My energy is low. I'm gaining that weight. I can't sleep at night. My mental sharpness, it may not be exactly brain fog, but a lot of women do have brain fog, but that mental sharpness is declined. You're noticing that you know what? I am exercising and it doesn't matter. I'm not gaining that muscle mass. What is going on with me? And that all those like joint pains, muscle aches, everything that is so vague that women are not even aware that that this could be hormonal in a lot of ways. And it's such vague symptoms that you're like, shoot, what do I tell my doctor? And I mean, I think, I am giving that out today too, is that I have a little thing that's called, elevating your quality of life. And it really helps you to kind of like, just kind of take the check box, what symptoms you have. And if you have those symptoms, you might be like, okay, I may have a bit of a hormonal issue here or hormonal balance, but majority of women at age 30 start declining in their hormones. And we start noticing it maybe when we're 35 and then closer to when we're our 40s, we really notice it. And then when we're 50, we're like, okay. And we get told that it's okay. That's part of the normal, like, aging, which it is. But then what about what happens when we lose our hormones, when we lose our estrogen, when we lose our progesterone, when we lose our testosterone? And, those are the three hormones that a lot of, physicians and just in general health talks about. I mean, if you're lucky, they'll talk about testosterone, but there's other ones. There's DHEA, there's thyroid, there's other ones that you have to look at. And also something called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance happens about 20 years before you even get the diseases, which is a precursor to all chronic diseases, heart disease. And so I say to women is becoming more aware that you can advocate for yourself and that there are providers out there and doctors out there that can help you. It's just trying to make sure you can navigate in the right way who you need to get and what is the qualifications you need to find for those.
I'm like hanging on every word and taking notes, and I'm remembering I'm supposed to ask you questions as well. So you covered a lot of my next question, but like, can you explain to us what's happening inside of us as a women as we're going through perimenopause to menopause to cause all these changes that you're discussing, from the weight gain to the brain fog to the insulin resistance to everything we're all feeling? Like, why has it led to all of this?
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm guilty of getting too scientific, like too sciencey. So just cut me off if I start doing all these like pathways. Okay, so I'll try to make it like, not so, science. And if you didn't like science, I'm sorry. So, but one of the things is really understanding that it is this decline in hormonal health. And I'm not going to we'll talk about lifestyle. We'll talk about all that. First of all, again, I always say lifestyle. That means nutrition, sleep, exercise, relationships, meaning. Those are really important aspects of your life and helping you as you age. So those are really important. That's your bread and butter of health, because I can give you all the hormones in the world, but if you don't do those things, you're not going to optimize your health and you're still going to have issues, right? My mentor always says, you exercise on all the days that you eat. Or that you don't eat, sorry. You don't exercise, sorry, on all the days that you don't eat. And I mean, we eat every day, so we're not going to do that, right? So I reverse that. So just kind of understanding that as you age, there's a whole bunch of things that happens. The minute we lose let's talk about perimenopause. It's kind of like a no man's land because no man can navigate it, and so it's a no man's land. And what happens with it is that our estrogen goes up, down, up, down, up, down. It's just gone. It's like crazy. You can't even really figure out what that is. And I actually don't even look at that because it's just so much all over the place. And so when you have these like moods of like irritability, bloating, you're just feeling like breast tenderness, all those things that can happen, you don't realize that this is hormone that's going up and down. And a lot of times women are having more of a deficiency or insufficiency or not optimal in their progesterone. And so we always hear a lot about estradiol, but in the perimenopause phase, no one really talks about progesterone. And it's one of my favorite hormones in perimenopause because you don't want to take estradiol when you're in like those early phases, because when you're really high on estrogen and you add estrogen to it, you're going to have more irritability and you're going to feel worse about it. But that's something that we tend to do in the conventional medicine, is actually give women in perimenopause estrogen, right, or estradiol. And so you want to give progesterone, and progesterone is also something that can help navigate those ups and downs when you happen. What happens? We talked about weight gain. Why do we gain the weight gain? Well, when we start having this, it ends up being like metabolism goes down. When your metabolism goes down, that's also our thyroid as well. So it's always important to check your thyroid with your family doctor or your doctor in general. And one of the things with thyroid, though, and I'm not going to get into this because we're going to go down a rabbit hole with this one, but thyroid is how do I put this? It's your metabolic hormone, which most times we were trained in conventional medicine just to look at the thyroid stimulating hormone, which is the TSH. And unfortunately, the TSH is not the best indicator of what's going on at the tissue level. And that's kind of where you might need something like a T4 or a T3, depending on your physician, if they're comfortable. But then also, if they do it, they need to know what to do with it. And again, they're looking at ranges that are in this normal range. And those normal ranges come from, you take 100 people in that age group, and this age group could be from like 40 to like 80, right? Whatever the age group is for the lab, right? And those people all have normal levels. So if you're sitting on the bottom of that, you're considered normal. But you may not, for your body, be able to feel better on that because it's not optimal for your health. It's not optimal for you, right? And so this decline and that coming down with and insensitivities at the receptors, even insulin resistance, when we gain more fat tissue, it's because when we lose our hormones or we're not exercising or eating well, or sleeping well because of cortisol as well, those things can cause that weight gain. And you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And having that ability to have, and I call hormones that fertilizer of your garden kind of thing. It's that boost. And when you get that boost, you kind of, you feel great. But then if you're not planting your plants, if you're not actually watering them, that's your lifestyle. So you need all of it together, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So basically, just if I'm hearing you correctly, our hormones are all over the place. So if your doctor is saying go get those tested, that may not be accurate because they're up and down all the time. We need to go to the doctor to make sure that we can see where we are in our ranges, and probably we need to like even hone those in a little bit further. So what kind of doctor should we be looking for?
Okay, I'm going to tell you who I think, of course, there's going to be a bit of, based on where I trained, I would actually say if you ever need to look for a physician who actually understands bioidentical hormones or hormones, and I'll talk to you about what bioidentical are versus hormone therapy, I would say you need to go to the World Link Medical. World Link Medical has a directory where all those people have been trained with evidence-based medicine. So, and they will look beyond normal, and a lot of them are in this prevention space. And that is all over the U.S. too. There's some obviously there's some of us in Canada, but a lot of you guys are lucky. You have a lot of them there, right? So okay. You can do that.
Now I went ahead and did this, and I'm 47, and so I am on hormones, and I love my doctor. She actually just asked me about symptoms, which I think is the way you're supposed to do it, versus the testing. And she was so comforting when I felt a little bit crazy, to be honest. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. So talk to us about the research, because my mom's generation was scared of hormone replacement therapy and all the cancers that it could cause. But since then, we've debunked some of that. So talk us through the research of what truly is the story with hormone replacement.
Yeah, so the biggest scare is the breast cancer, right? And every woman wonders, oh my God, is hormones going to cause breast cancer? Well, when you actually, and the biggest one was estrogen at the time, right? Is estrogen causing breast cancer? And that came from a study that was considered what's called a baseline study. So what that means is that they looked at these women, and when they looked at these women, they said, okay, we're going to check their blood and see if they had, look back at their charts and see if they had high estrogen levels when they had breast cancer. So if they had breast cancer, look back at these charts and saw that. That's called a retrospective study, which is not, it's considered grade D evidence. When they saw that these women had higher levels of estrogen in their blood. And so they're like, oh, estrogen causes breast cancer. The problem with that is that you're looking at these studies that are telling you, first of all, you're looking back, which is not a very good one. Second of all, you don't know what else they're taking, but mainly it's the fact that it was a association, which means you're associating things, but they're not actually a causation. And the reason why we know it's not causation is because whenever you gave a woman estradiol, they actually had protection of breast tissue. And that's different from external versus your own baseline. So a lot of patients ask me this. So why, Dr. Rattan? Why is that baseline? Why is that study, studies like that been showing that? And I was like, well, what happened was that when you have estradiol, guess what those women had? They had estrogen is actually, or estradiol is aromatized, which means it's converted into in your fat tissue into estrogen. Fat tissue aromatizes, estrogen into fat tissue creates estrogen. And so when fat tissue makes estrogen, that levels will go up. And so in all these women, they had more body fat. And so guess what the actual cause of cancer can be? And when you have high fat tissue, you have higher insulin, right? Because resistance specifically. And those people who have higher insulin resistance because of fat tissue create what's called an inflammatory response. All these things start happening, interleukins, and that can increase your risk then for breast cancer. But we blamed it on the estrogen because women who had more fat tissue tend to have more higher estrogen because of the aromatization or the conversion from fat into estrogen that happens in fat tissue.
Okay,
yeah, and so then the breast cancer. So books, something you may want to read if you. I hopefully nobody has breast cancer here, but if you have it or you know anyone else who has it, Dr. Blooming and Hodis and Blooming wrote lots of articles on estrogen and breast cancer. But Dr. Blooming wrote the book Estrogen Matters. I'm just going to give a disclaimer here. My only issue with the book is that he talks about it's okay to take progestins versus progesterone, where progestins have been shown in the articles to increase the risk of breast cancer, and progesterone, which is the identical hormone to your body, is protective of breast cancer. And so that's the only difference that they don't seem to discern, because they're very much focused on estrogen. But the great thing about the book, it tells you estrogen is not a worry for causing breast cancer specifically.
So interesting. So this generation does not need to be worried necessarily about the hormones. We got to be worried about the insulin resistance and the fat. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Well, a bit of both. You still need to worry about your hormones.
Yeah. So, okay. But then is there any concern then when you're taking hormones with supplements or food? Is there any interaction there?
No, not really. That's more to do with the birth control pill. There's certain, and that's a synthetic hormone. It's not an identical hormone, right? So those are a little different, and that can just be from certain ones that can increase the liver enzyme, which then causes your birth control to be less effective, right? But for example, when I talked about progestins, which is synthetic, and progesterone, which is identical, progestins can actually, that's what you find in your birth control pill, right, is progestins. But unfortunately, and the reason I'm going to just make this really clear, I know I'm kind of going a bit off track here a little bit, but progestins and progesterone, the reason I want to kind of make that a bit clear is because on packets of progesterone, it says progestins, and it's because they all lump it together as the same family, but progesterone that's identical to your hormone, to your body, is actually very different than the progestins that are not identical. So this way to think about it is a molecular structure that is very different. One's identical to your body, one is not specifically. And so, yeah, that's kind of all I was going to say about that. And so supplements don't actually interact with the natural hormones or the bioidentical. I don't like to use the word natural, but bioidentical hormones. And there's certain supplements that, if you're looking at those particularly for health, and you can use them to support your health.
Fascinating. Well, my 100 milligrams of progesterone I take every night have been very helpful in the last year. So it's fun to learn about it from you. Okay, so give us some perspective on how we could naturally approach some of the problems we're having with sleep and energy and mental sharpness, the weight gain. Give it to us.
So definitely, okay, bioidentical hormones are a bit more of a natural approach. So that's something that I would definitely look into, is the bioidentical hormones. Secondly, with sleep, I'm going to say, you just said about progesterone helped you with sleep. I know I'm going to go down that supplement road in a second, but the progesterone actually works on receptors in your brain called GABA, which is what helps with the decreasing your anxiety, and also help with the calm that you can feel, the decreased PMS symptoms, and why you sleep. And unfortunately, a lot of physicians and providers may not understand that progesterone should be taken at night. So if you had a bad reaction to progesterone because it made you dizzy, it's because the metabolite that comes out of progesterone makes you sleepy. So don't take it in the day. So if your provider told you to take it in the day, I would recommend you talk to them about that and decide what you want to do, but definitely take it at night. And so that's a really good thing for sleep. You probably won't need any other supplements if you took progesterone, right? The second thing is melatonin. So melatonin is a supplement. It's also a hormone. Women don't understand that melatonin, or men too, don't understand melatonin is a hormone, but melatonin is also one that you can use to help with sleep. And, some people ask me about magnesium. Is magnesium helpful? Magnesium can sometimes help to relax the muscle. And so people do feel that it calms them and helps them then, fall asleep. It's not really working to like help with like how melatonin does with sleep. They work differently, but magnesium, and I usually prefer to recommend the magnesium, or I educate my patients on magnesium, the different types of magnesium. Magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate is one that doesn't irritate your gut as much, and so you don't get the diarrhea kind of side effects with that. Citrate is a different one that you might, if you have constipation, maybe you want to take citrate, right? Because it will help with that. So that's kind of ones. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is a hormone too. So everyone thinks vitamin D is a vitamin, but vitamin D is actually a hormone. And so I always recommend everyone should be on vitamin D. And, depending on where you are, most people don't get enough sun. Vitamin D is important for many things in your body, including your DNA and like expression and all that as well. So fiber. We didn't think about that. So we're talking through lifestyle. Fiber is really important. Fiber is is something that you need to get into your diet because we don't get enough. And you should be getting around 30 grams minimum. I say minimum 30 grams. I know a lot of people just say 30 grams. I say minimum 30 grams up to 50 grams of fiber, but don't put that in all at once because you're going to get bloated. One thing that people do is use supplements for fiber. I've always been a big natural person to try to get it through your diet first, but I understand that 50 grams is really high. And so I always recommend to try to do that first by getting yourself to kind of count your fiber, see how much you get in a day. Good apps, you can get really good apps nowadays that can just do that for free, and then understand that. And then if you need to take a supplement on top because you're not hitting that, then take a fiber supplement to kind of help with that. But don't like do all the 50 grams through just supplements. The other things, of course, meditation. Meditation is such an important one. And of course, that is something that, and really connecting to your deeper meaning. So are you noticing in your life, maybe there's something around in the meaning that you might be missing? Is it like you're not having unity with others? Are you maybe not expressing your full potential? Is there an ability for you to kind of be noticing, hey, I'm serving, I'd like to serve more in the community or contribute to the community more. And how is this affecting your integrity specifically? And how is your circumstances and your reality really affecting you from getting that meaning in those kind of 4 key areas that are there, as well as are you always doing and not being? And I'm going to give you an example. A lot of us as physicians are always serving, or at least in the system, if you're in the system, you're like serving, that your integrity is always at compromise because you're always giving to others and sometimes don't have time for yourself. And as moms and as women, we're always giving, and maybe not looking at that. So really exploring that actually, and we don't think about it as helping us, but it does, because meditation and connecting to ourselves decreases our cortisol levels. Right. So that's really important. Exercise. I don't need to tell this to you guys. You probably know this, but exercise is so important. There's so many different types of exercise. I always say pick the one that really works with you. And what I mean by that is that it kind of aligns with your values. And I know a lot of people don't approach exercise that way. But it's so important to align your activities with your values. For example, I'll give you a quick example of I love meditation, as you know. I hate running. I don't mind doing exercising and that stuff, but I hate running. Okay. And so what I do is I try to find a tool that was kind of similar. And for me, I fell in love with Tai Chi. And so I do a lot of Tai Chi because it's mind and body, but I don't mean like the one in the park. I mean like real hardcore Tai Chi, like down trying to do that when I learned how to do weapons and things like that. So that's kind of where I aligned. I'm like, why do I love this so much? Because it aligned with the idea of connecting the body, the mind, and my soul together, right? And so that's kind of picking something that aligns with your values would be really good as well.
Oh my gosh, this is all so good. I feel like we could ask a million more questions, but I'm going to keep us moving. So we decided to just open up this conversation to everything that you might be thinking. So one of the areas that we don't talk about very often during midlife is sex drive. Like sometimes that doesn't work as well anymore. So tell me what your recommendation is here. Like what can we be doing to help ourselves in that category?
So, I mean, for women, it's so multifactorial. It really is. But if we look at it's our mind, it's our stress, it's, how we're connecting to our partners. Those are really important. On a more hormonal level, what's really missing is that testosterone piece. It can really help with sexual health specifically. So can any of the, but basically DHEA but mainly testosterone can really help with those. And a lot of the women don't even know that they can get this specific things here. But for women, it's so multifactorial. But when it comes to like, hey, I have a lot of women telling me, I love my partner. I have a great relationship with them, but I just avoid sex because it's dry, right? That's what they say, right? Or that I just I don't feel it, or I'm not sensitive anymore. And so testosterone can sometimes help with that sensitivity. It can help with bringing back the moisture in the vagina as well, and things like that can actually help improve the sexual health. But women, I guess we were expected not to have sex or something because they didn't really create a drug for us, right? So that's where testosterone can help a little bit with that specifically.
Yeah. And, I think it's important we talk about that because I think that can make you feel really badly about yourself or that there's something wrong. I've heard lots of people get divorces around this time.
Yes.
So
it's
if it's
huge.
a matter of just asking for some help, I think it's important we encourage that.
Yeah. And it's also important that we are, it also depends on how your upbringing is. Maybe we weren't talking about sex in our house. Most of us probably have a different generation of parents that were not like, let's talk about sex, right? Like, no, right? And so a lot of them are trying to be able to now get comfortable with our own bodies. There are some websites that help women to look at how to, because as you grow, maybe what you liked when you were 20 is not going to work when you're 40, right? Or in your 40s. And so understanding how your body works, because it changes in its sensitivity, and trying to understand doing that and exploring, right? What do you like and what you don't like, communicating with your partners what it is that you like and you don't like. And that's also a hard part, right?
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, we are very excited to introduce one extra special guest who also decided to join us tonight. So we know that spousal support in this time can be very important. So we were very excited when Dr. Simran's husband decided to come. So he is also a hormonal doctor. This is Dr. Manjeet Prewal, and he is also dual board certified in both family and lifestyle medicine. So we are so excited to have you here also.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So you get the pleasure of being the husband, but also the medical practitioner and also a dad. So how do you suggest partners best support their spouses during this crazy period of time that we're going through?
So I think the hardest part, and it's changing now, but is bringing awareness. So first of all, for women to actually have awareness that, wait a second, I can do something about all the stuff that I'm going through right now. And then, of course, their partners also being aware that they're going through a lot of stuff. And having that awareness helps you understand the ups and downs that people can experience, and some of the struggles they might be having. And sometimes you might get that question, what's wrong with you? And it's not that there's something wrong with someone. It's just things are changing so rapidly and so up and down that when you understand that that happens and that's actually normal, it gives you a lot more patience and understanding to support your partner. And so on top of that, of course, is the partners encouraging you to go get help, right? One of the interesting things I find is that at times I do find there is a reluctance from women to actually receive the help that they deserve. We both treat both men and women. And with men, yep, sign me up. I'm ready to go. Women, for some reason, the only thing I can really think about is they're almost not giving themselves permission to get help. And so it's really important to get that encouragement, to give that encouragement. And also, in order to give that help, most of the time, having a provider, a physician that's neutral, that's coming in from the outside to give objective advice. Because as we all know, anyone that are in a relationship, sometimes when you hear something from your partner, you don't want to hear it. And so providing that support, but not trying to fix all the issues and allowing someone else to come in to help is really, really important. And of course, thirdly, we always say hormones is a team sport. Everyone should try to get optimized. So they themselves should also try to get help. And some of their struggles and some of their issues Certainly women go through challenges with sex, for example, but so do men. And for men, the erections may not be the way they used to be when they're 25 years old, and they may have issues or concerns, and that may influence the relationship. I've heard it over and over and over again, where a female partner may think because her male partner isn't working as well sexually, that there's an issue in the relationship, when really the male himself will say, actually, this is completely me, a me issue. Maybe I'm stressed, maybe my hormones are off, maybe whatever it is. So if they can get help themselves, they will also feel better and perform better.
I was going to jump in real quick there and say the irritability part of men is actually very real. So when their hormones start declining and testosterone starts going down, they get very irritable and less patient, even with their families, with their children. And they have no idea that it's actually could be a hormonal thing.
I feel like everyone on the screen is nodding.
That's what's going on.
Yes.
I want to ask a little more on that, because I don't know that I've honestly ever heard about men's hormones before. So tell us a little bit more. Is that an age range, just like women?
Certainly. And so you speak to any man from, let's say, 35 to 50. And let's go through the list. How's your energy? It's not the way it used to be. How's your muscular strength? Not what it used to be. How's your sexual function? Things are okay, but not what they used to be. How's your mood? Really up and down. Now, of course, there's still life. Most of us, a lot of us are now in our 40s. We're paying for mortgages. We have kids. We have families. The stress is real. And so sometimes I like to, maybe joke with my patients that, when we were 21 years old, what were we really stressed about? And I mean that in a playful way, because now the stakes are much higher. So there is higher stress, of course. But with that decline, the capacity to handle that stress, and therefore to be calm, patient, peaceful, not angry, not grumpy, those are some of the things that you can see in some men. And then, of course, the ability to lose weight, the ability to gain muscle mass, the ability to exercise. A lot of men will tell me they feel like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, 1 step back, 2 steps forward.
There is really a grumpy old man thing going on there.
I'm sitting here thinking of how to approach this conversation in my house. So maybe you can give us some helpful tips on lifestyle changes that we can make together to reduce symptoms and find ways for us to bond during these changes.
I'm laughing because I had this conversation with him when I was like, grumpy, you need to go see.
I think the word I used yesterday was prickly. I'm like, you're a little
prickly. There you go.
So I don't know what that means, but.
So as I mentioned, this is from our mentor, hormones is a team sport. So everybody get help because you don't want one person way up here and one person down here, because you don't want a mismatch because someone's going to be feeling great and someone's not going to be feeling great about not feeling great. And so things that you can certainly do together, I think exercising together is a fantastic thing to do. So, one of the things is, Simran will ask me, hey, we should go for a walk. And I really enjoy intense exercise.
You like running?
I like running. If it's not hard, I'm kind of bored. So I said, how do I be able to walk with her in a way that she's enjoying it and challenge myself? So I decided to start walking with some weights on, like a weighted vest. We call it rucking. And it's a great way to get a bit of a resistance training, make your body work a lot harder. And so after an hour-long walk, she's had a great time. We've had a great conversation, and I'm dead because I'm carrying 20, 25 pounds on my back, and I'm tired. And we do Tai Chi together. So finding an activity, she loves tennis. We set up a badminton net in the backyard. We play with our kids. Whatever the activity is, we all have bikes at home, so we can all bike together. And so finding ways to do activities that everyone enjoys. It sounds really obvious when I say it, but when you do things, you're more likely to do things that everyone enjoys more often. And then, of course, that's the exercise component. One of the other things we like to do is, of course, meditate together. This is a little bit going into the spiritual aspect of things, but there is a let's say, spiritual connection between a couple. And when you can meditate together and connect together in whatever spiritual way that's important to the couple, you'll have a better match of where you guys are at. The vibes will match, as we like to say. And then, of course, probably maybe the most important thing is um, marriage relationships are hard. And so creating a safe space to have conversations, hard conversations, to talk about issues, that's going to go like such a long way to say, hey, I actually get really upset when this happens, and vice versa, or whatever happens, and be able to say that to each other without blowing up, without storming out of the room, without yelling and swearing at each other, throwing things at each other, whatever it may be. And if you have that space, relationships are foundational for your health. We meet so many people that maybe don't have the best hormones, that don't necessarily have the physical health, but their relationships and their meaning is so great that they say, I feel great. And we've seen it so many times where even if they're older, but I've got a great spouse. I love what I'm doing. I want to wake up every day. I really connect with my partner. And we've seen even that is such a transformative change. So, of course, the relationship aspects is really important.
Oh, we could talk about this all day. I appreciate you guys so much for being on. Is there anything else you feel like we should know before we switch into talking about supplements?
I think I'll just reiterate the same point I said before is it's okay to get help for yourself. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to put yourself last. And when you put yourself first, you're then able to take care of all the people around you so much easier because you have the energy and the capacity and the drive to do these things.
Well, thank you so much. We're hang on because we're gonna hold you guys for questions here in a minute. But what I love about you, what you're doing here is we go to the doctor to fix something, right? But what you're doing is actually that so much psychology and things that people need to be told, which I'm sure you recognize from your, vast careers. But it's so cool because we're sort of in the same world in a different way. But sometimes people just need permission. So we appreciate that. Okay, we're going to jump back onto the screen and just share a few more slides and then get your questions ready so that we can ask them questions before we go.
Yeah, I still need to know how much melatonin I need to be taking because I'm taking copious notes here. So I'm like, tell me what to do. Okay, so let's take some action so we can feel better. We are so excited to get to share tonight more about our next step. So really how to feel better through our Ready, Set Wellness. As a gift for you guys tonight, we've created the PowerPause Guide to Midlife. In a minute, we're going to give that to you through a QR code. So if you're somebody that's joining us from a friend, we're going to shoot that over to you. But first, we are going to recap when it comes to giving your body what it needs. We'll recap all that for you. So Jen, I'll kick it to you.
Okay, can we advance a couple slides? All right, next
So
slide. One more. Okay, all right. So as we finish up tonight, we want to bring your attention to the importance of using high quality products to ensure you're helping rather than harming yourself. So we all believe that the Shaklee line of products are the best because they are clean and organic. And the company undergoes extensive testing for purity before, during, and after production. So I think that's really important. And additionally, they also have invested $500 million in clinical trials to prove their effectiveness. So the testing goes above and beyond what's required in the supplement industry, which I appreciate. And we want you to know without a shadow of a doubt that you can feel good about what you're putting in your body because there's so much stuff out there that isn't necessarily helpful. Next slide. Okay, so where should a middle-aged woman begin? So as we discussed tonight, so many things about midlife can improve when your body gets exactly what it needs. And unfortunately, food alone is not as nutrient dense as it was 50 years ago. So we have access to what we call the 21st century groceries and a simple vitamin strip to fill the gaps where maybe your nutrition just isn't doing the trick. So we love to start women on our Vitalizer Daily Vitamin Strip. It includes vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, omegas, and a very good probiotic that makes it all the way to your lower intestine. And in a longitudinal study over 20 years, Shaklee users on average had 30% better biomarkers for heart, brain, and cognitive health compared to non-Shaklee users or users of another supplement. And additionally, we heard about the importance of lots of things for your body, but one of them is protein. And that's so important in midlife. And not all protein powders are the same. They're not created equal. So we've heard lots of stories about heavy metals in proteins, and we're committed to making sure that ours are clean, like I mentioned before, which is why we love to recommend Life Shake to be your protein of choice. It includes leucine, which is a powerful amino acid that helps you burn fat and build muscle as you're going through midlife. And then finally, we also recommend collagen, which a lot of women we hear from suffer from thinning hair, brittle nails, sometimes joint pain. And the right collagen, like our collagen 9 on the top there, has 9 essential amino acids, or the Up and Glowing in the orange has biotin and hyaluronic acid that can help your body produce more collagen. Next slide. So I'm going to point these out for you so you can see what they are. So to get started, if you want to jump in with all that, we call this the Ready, Set, Wellness Bundle. This is your first option. Again, vitamins, protein, and collagen, and you get a discount on this because you're getting all 3. So that's option 1. On the next slide, we have a second option where if you understand kind of filling your nutrient gap in that concept with Ready, Set, Wellness, we always suggest to level up with alfalfa. And our friends in the company who have been there much longer than us, so 3 and 4 and 5 decades, swear by this product. And it has so many different just the things that it can do for you. So it reduces inflammation, helps with digestion, alkalizes the body. It's a detoxifier. It boosts your immunity, and it can support cardiovascular, hormonal, and skin health. So lots of reasons to add your alfalfa in there as well. And then lastly, our third option is the best one. And this one also adds in a third option for sleep aids. So we have a Rest and Rewind mint tea that you take 30 minutes before bed for restful sleep and anti-aging benefits with polyphenols. And then we also have something called Dream Serene, kind of like the melatonin option. This is patent pending and can help you fall asleep. And then lastly, we have a pre and probiotic that you can pop in your drink called Good Gut and Go. So we're convinced this option is the one that's going to help you rock your days through midlife. And it's kind of your lucky day today because we have a very exciting special that you can circle back with the person that invited you here. If you get this third option, you are qualified for a gift valued at $50. So ask them how to use the code to get that, and text them option 1, 2, or 3 so that they know what you're looking for. Okay, Jamie?
Every single one of those things I use every day. I'm so grateful for them. So, you guys heard us kick this off tonight. Jen and I have been besties since middle school, and we've been doing life and business together ever since. And I think one of the most beautiful things about Shaklee, dating back nearly 70 years, is truly talking about wellness in community and together and as friends and as partners and family. And so if you're thinking through this of like, you know what, I want to get my household clean. I want my kids to be on clean protein. I want to feel great. I want my husband to feel great. And I've got 5 of my besties who are in the same place of life who want to feel better and have more energy and really make an impact for those around them. We would love to discuss how you can be a part of our Giving Wellness movement. Like I said at the beginning, this is just about the best gig on earth because we really get to make an impact for people and help them feel great and to play a part in that looking and feeling and just living life longer and younger and feeling great is such a blessing. So if you've got 5 friends or anyone that you want to help play and you want to play a part in it, we'd love to have you part of our community as well as we get to really make a difference. So Jen, back to you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get your questions ready. We'll try and do this in an orderly fashion. So Prolene, we might need your help here, but if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand on your screen and she'll unmute you so that you can actually ask your question. I don't have the controls, so I'm no help. Okay, let's go with Marissa.
Hi there. Thank you all for hosting this. And I have a question for Dr. Rattan and her husband. Actually, I have two questions. The first is easy, or it's easy for me to articulate. The second one is a little harder. First question is, what would you say to a patient who has sporadic symptoms? So some days feeling great, not other days. When is it sort of time to take action? That's the first question. The second one is a little bit of a longer articulation, probably. You said, Dr. Rattan, at the beginning of your talk that you went to school for sort of standard medicine, disease prevention, and then moved into integrative medicine. And from a layperson standpoint, what my research tells me is that there's doctors of two sorts, right? There's the naturopaths and integrative medicines and more of a DO, and then there's MDs and sort of DOs over here too. And I know, we're all products of our schooling. So we're all products of how we came up. And so I know that these two different communities of physicians don't always see eye to eye. Some of the testing things that you all do isn't necessarily endorsed or fully embraced by the other side of the medical community. And in the Western world, especially in America, we lean on our FDA pretty hard. And if it's not FDA approved, we don't want to touch it. My question for you is, how does a consumer reconcile these two schools of experts? And are there other traditions or other countries who aren't so beholden to their own version of the FDA that embrace the naturopathic and integrative medicine a little bit more?
Both are really good questions. The first one with your, I'll take the first question. With the up and down of feeling that way, when do you get help? Right when you just said that, that would be the person to get help right away, right? Because the up and down in feeling some days good, some days bad is that could be fluctuation of the hormones, most likely are. And you can get that help right away. And that's something that I wouldn't even think about it now. You didn't say this, but like, where would you go for that? You would, again, it comes down to your second question, finding that provider who can integrate both the medical part, evidence-based medicine. Integrative medicine is evidence-based medicine. You're right that naturopaths are kind of say integrative health, which I can see how it can get confusing. And so what is integrative medicine? First of all, it's complementary alternative medicine, and it's also MD put together. Right. And so when you look at that, especially where I got trained with the Andrew Weil Center, it is mainly either nurse practitioners or MDs who have completed their fellowship there and integrate both the complementary alternative botanicals, all that stuff. Testing is a different question because I don't use a lot of those tests because you can actually do a lot based on the patient. And so why are we spending all this money on getting patients to do all these tests that actually don't change what I'm going to do? Because it's literally the same recommendations after, right? Now, so there is a bit of a thought with that. But at the same time, we only practice integrated medicine. We only do practice evidence-based medicine. So these are articles after articles. And are there complementary medicine articles to your question in other countries? Yes. Europe, for example, does a lot with specifically bioidentical hormones. They mainly use a lot of that. So that's something there. When it comes to botanicals and supplements, again, it's also coming from Europe, and also India, China. There's all these things. The problem, though, is that the research is in the language. And so to convert that and understand the different standards of how it is very hard to sometimes navigate, as well as the fact that when they do research here, they're using different botanical parts that are not actually supposed to be, which makes it like not work, right? When you look at the evidence here, which is not actually the research themselves don't understand that the part of the botanical or the part of the supplement or the plant that they're getting it from, the part that they're getting from and studying is not the part that you're supposed to be getting those ingredients from, as well as I think Jen had mentioned some, heavy metals and things like that. So I'm going to let him do the FDA part because I think he'll articulate it a little bit better than I will. Because I know we get this question all the time with the FDA. So it's like,
I'm trying to think of how to answer this question in a short answer. So I think with anything that's FDA approved, or in our case, Health Canada approved, or whatever it may be, what we try to do is when we offer treatment to a patient, whether it's a hormone or a supplement, we try to teach them, here's what the articles have said. Not just one, we've reviewed 10, 20, dozens, whatever it may be, and say, based on this literature, they gave 1 milligram of this substance and it improved, this many people. This is why we're giving you 1 milligram, for example. And so it's putting the evidence together in a way that says, hey, I'm not just making this up. This is something I've seen in the literature coupled with clinical experience, and then I'm going to offer this to you. So yes, it's important to have FDA approval because then we know that there are safety studies that are done. One of the basics of any drug that's FDA approved, they first go through stages of studies, and the first study is safety studies. And so in some ways, having FDA approval is really good because then you know that in general, this substance is relatively safe. However, not everything is necessarily FDA approved because maybe it's not a drug, it's a supplement, or it's still new. And so what we try to make sure is that if there's an evidence base behind it and it's being done in Europe or in Asia or wherever it is, and we've got these articles that show it, that, hey, look, this is what's going on. Now, if it's something like a relatively safe supplement that doesn't really necessarily have a lot of significant side effects, what we often tell our patients is, yes, you can try this, see how you feel, let's see how your numbers are, and let's take a critical approach on what we're doing here and make sure that A, do you feel better, and B, are the numbers looking better, and are you overall, is your health improving? If the answer is yes, then it seems like you should take it. If the answer is no, then maybe you need to critically evaluate, is it the right supplement, or do you need to do something else?
Thank you.
To add to the FDA part, I'm not going to say too much about it, but basically it's understanding how do they also look at drugs. It's like what, 20%?
Yeah,
and so if your drug is I'm not trying to get into the
trying to get controversial. Yeah. But ultimately, yes, a drug may or may not be FDA approved, but it's important to look at the evidence that's supporting the use of the drug. That's probably the best way to put it. Best way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. Which is not necessarily always what the FDA puts out, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, Olia?
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand the last part, but I'll yield the floor here to others. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much. This has been really awesome and really, really helpful. I wanted to acknowledge there's Ranjana mentioned hearing that weighted vests can be tricky if people have hip or knee issues. So, I'm sure there are probably, things that you can suggest that are alternatives to that.
Certainly. Very quickly, one, if you're having pain without walking with any weight, then certainly don't walk with weight. First, try to address that pain first. But if you want to start walking with weight, start very light. 2 pounds, 3 pounds, and work your way up. Don't jump to 20 or 25 pounds. It's going to hurt. And if you can't support the weight, you need to have good posture. You need to have muscle engagement. So just go very, very, very slowly.
And then I have my own question, which is, what would you suggest to someone? So I'm not originally from this country, and we do have a lot of alternative medicine where I'm from. And I'm sort of, my plan is to kind of go. I've not been, just full disclosure, I've not been able to take birth control because of what it does to my body, and I listen to my body, and it just doesn't agree with it. So what would what would be your recommendation for someone who is who wants to go the natural route?
So birth control is synthetic, right? So you may not have the same effects with the bioidentical hormones. So what is bioidentical hormone? Progesterone and estradiol. Basically, that means that's what's made in your body, right? And so a lot of people who have side effects of progestins, it's not the same in progesterone when you look at the studies. And but like, for example, the FDA, we had a creeper I just saw from one of the kids, but when you have that, they will put out like that, the same prescribing drug reference on progestins get put on progesterone. But when you actually look at the studies, progesterone doesn't have it. And the reason I'm saying is a lot of people who have side effects with birth control pill is to do with the progestins, which can kind of increase that risk for clotting too, right?
If I can add on.
Yeah.
So natural ways, of course. I mean, part of the challenge is that you need a really, really good lifestyle. You need to have a really good diet. You need to really exercise. You need to sleep. You need to manage your stress. You need to manage your relationships. You need to look at your meaning. And so most people want to do these things, but in our current lifestyles, it's hard to be perfect. Sometimes even when you're perfect, you're still having symptoms. And that's where having a critical conversation with a practitioner that hopefully knows what they're doing and easing you into things and having a conversation of what we call informed consent. So you know what you're getting yourself into, what to expect, and things don't work. Okay, we stop. We go this way. We go that way. Certainly there's a lot of science, but there's a lot of art to this.
Yeah.
And having that relationship with a good provider makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
Hey, Jolyn.
Thank you as well. This was an amazing. So you, I think, just answered one of my questions. Bioidentical just means progesterone or estrogen. It's not that there's a synthetic estrogen it's just those are the hormones that we need. And the second question that I have is, where do the men in our lives go for this help that they might need?
So quickly go back to the bioidentical. Bioidentical or hormones are identical to your body. They are made in a lab, which is why I tell people, like, when we think about synthetic, we think of mating and making in the lab, but synthetic hormones are structures that, when I talk about synthetic, that are not identical to your body, where hormones like DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, and estradiol and thyroid, you can get bioidentical forms of those for your body. That's for that. Okay, and that means they're identical to your normal one. They have different differently, right? So they work similar to the one in your body. They don't work like the ones that synthetics do, right? So and then you have the second question. I think that was for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the same place. Generally, most hormone practitioners will treat both men and women.
Yeah.
Some may specialize one or the other. But there are enough places, again, looking at WorldLink Medical, there is a huge directory of practitioners. You just type in your state and you'll see the list of people show up there. And there's definitely ways to get help.
I mean, the only people that won't treat men are the gynecologists. So if you see gynecologists on there, they're not going to treat men. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
We're learning so much. Okay, Laura.
I just had one question about the bioidentical hormones. Are there any side effects with that?
Yeah, so there's the biggest one for progesterone is dizziness and sleepiness, which is why I say take it 1 hour before you go to bed. Because you're going to feel awful in the morning, you'll want to sleep, right? So you want to take that in the evening. And with the estradiol, when you usually take that post-menopause, right? And when you take that, the biggest one there is you need to take progesterone with it no matter what, because it protects your endometrial lining, and estradiol can thicken the endometrial lining. And so you want to keep that lining thin, which is why you'll see doctors give you both. But progesterone isn't just for endometrial lining. It's also for sleep and other tissue protection, which a lot of people don't think about, or a lot of practitioners don't, or professionals don't think about the effects of progesterone on other parts of the body. So women, for example, with hysterectomy don't get progesterone, but then they don't sleep well. So there's a lot of other reasons for that. Other things, testosterone, for example, can cause things like, well, can't cause, but for some people are more sensitive to testosterone. And so they notice that they can have sometimes a little bit more acne or hair issues, like more hair growth on their face where we don't want it, and like hair falling out, right? So that's usually in women who have something called PCOS. They're a little bit more sensitive to it. And so they end up, and so for those kind of women, I kind of like really make sure that the PCOS specifically, women are kind of blocked with some other medications to help with that, so they don't end up getting those side effects.
And just to add on, with estrogen and progesterone, too much or too little can also provide side effects. So if you're given too much estrogen, you might notice some side effects, bloating, maybe even bleeding, breast tenderness, irritability, things like that. So it's finding the right mix of the hormones together to make sure that you're in a good place. And that's checking with you and checking with labs.
Okay, we have a little bit of a follow-on question there of what happens if you fall asleep, but you don't stay asleep?
Progesterone helps with that.
Okay.
Big time. Yeah. So it just might be that you're not on the I see who it is. I was like, you may not be on the right dose. So you might have to go higher. So sometimes, people who which comes into what exactly is the right. So people always ask me this. So what's my number? I'm like, well, the numbers don't correlate with your symptoms. So you could have beautiful looking numbers that are considered there, but you could still be having all the symptoms of maybe progesterone being not optimal. Right.
Okay. Olga?
Hello. Thank you so much. Great information. So I have lots of questions, but I'll keep it short. One question is, Dr. Rattan mentioned that it's hard to measure hormones because they go up and down. So how would one know what to take? Is it progesterone or estrogen, or what would be a path for that? And second is, what type of progesterone is better? Is it in the form of a cream or pill? And my third question is acne for perimenopause. Is it more, you think it could be hormones or it could be something else? So sorry for 3 questions, but I'm really
so sorry. The first one was what was the first one? Sorry, the first one. I thought the second.
When to take.
Hard to measure hormones, like how.
Oh yeah, so the levels of hormones. Yeah, so that's a great question. I get that all the time. So one of the biggest things with hormones is that you might do a baseline just to kind of see when I give the hormone, are you absorbing it? But I don't actually base if I'm giving it to you just on numbers. I base it on your symptoms, and also based on if you're really looking at numbers. That's the problem we're having right now. Nobody gets hormones because everyone's normal. Right. And so you have to know, if you're postmenopause, it's normal to have 0 hormones. Right. So that's kind of where you have to look at the patient, understand what the patient is, and know what the symptoms are having. So, for example, if someone comes and tells me that, Doctor, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not staying asleep, I'm sleeping 8 hours. And I don't wake up, but I don't feel restored when I wake up, things like that. I'm having energy that is just completely depleted by the end of the day, or by 3 p.m. specifically. I'm not feeling great anymore. I was fine in the morning. So I just listened to some of the symptoms that then you get really good at knowing that this is this hormone, right? And then you add it. And then the reality is we all had those hormones when we were younger, and as we get older, we lose them. And so there's 2 aspects of health. One is helping you feel better, right? The second is that how am I going to help you decrease those risk of diseases? And so when I look at a patient, I look at their whole picture, their body comp, their muscle mass, their fat mass, everything, and see here now, okay, you know what? You're depleting your muscle mass really quickly. While testosterone can help with sexual health, it can also help with building that muscle back, right? Which is going to increase your longevity. So it's a very whole picture. It's looking at your symptoms, it's looking at measurements and data that is not just blood work, your body comp, and also understanding things like, are you sleeping, and is your memory okay? So that's something. Mental sharpness is huge. Some people have things like constipation and don't even know why they've had it all their life. Acne, for example. Acne could be, I've caught so many women in postmenopause who didn't even know that they have the syndrome that's called PCOS, right? You don't have to have cysts on your ovaries, and women start to notice that they get acne. And that's because as they lose their hormones, they end up increasing something called your, you start decreasing something called your sex hormone binding globulin, which increases your free testosterone, which causes acne. And that happens because of increase in insulin resistance and fat. And so it's a very complicated answer, but there's ways to look at it where you don't have to actually just look at numbers, right? There's so much a person tells you. You just got to listen to their story. I mean, that's really the best way I can put it. You have to listen to their story. And when you hear everything from beginning, I just saw someone put in saliva cortisol. Saliva, for example, testing is really good for just baseline testing. Baseline testing means that when you just get it done and you have not taken any hormone, saliva is just tells you where your hormone is, for example. But the minute you give hormones, it's not a good test. The evidence has shown that when you do it again, it is not good. And in fact, it can be harmful. Routes of hormone, you had asked me specifically with progesterone, I think it was oral. I would say oral is your best route for sleep benefits. If you can't tolerate it and what I mean by that is some women, it's very specific, get nipple tenderness, not breast, specific to the nipple. Right. And so with that, there's not that they can't tolerate it. You have to just go down on the dosing and then go back up, and they tend to do good. You give it about 3 to 4 months. So if you want the sleep benefits, you want oral, you can do it other ways. Like I would recommend what's called submucosal, which is under the tongue, or vaginally. I don't do creams on the skin because it doesn't give good protection for the uterus.
Great. Thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. 2 more questions and then we're going to let these guys go. Stephanie.
Hi, thank you. Hip pain in menopause. I am definitely noticing increased hip pain. And in fact, even during exercise, which I've been doing forever, now I'm finding that I'm hurting my hip flexor if I run. So then I don't run, but then it affects my walking, and then I'm taking longer to recover. And this was not something I've had up until this year. I'm going to be 55 this year. So I had a hysterectomy, but I've kept my ovaries. Not sure where I'm at in terms if I'm peri or full on menopause, but the hip pain is something new, and it's really one of those lifestyle things that's really challenging for me right now.
So real quick, and this actually might answer another question that Olga said too, is that when you talk about like when you're not sure if you're in menopause, the one blood work that you can do to see if you're in post-menopause is the FSH-LH, because that will tell us if you are in menopause or post-menopause, sorry, right? Menopause is that one day, by the way, after 1 year of not having a period. And then post-menopause is everything after, right? And so the FSH and LH is a blood work that you could get done. And I do sometimes test that even in my patients to make sure if they're in that age where we're not sure, they've had a hysterectomy, they've had an ovaries, they're still producing estradiol. You'll see that estradiol like really high, but estradiol goes up and I can catch it at a low point. But FSH tells me, or an LH tells me if it is you're in post-menopause specifically. And then for your hip pain, oh my God, our receptors in our joints, guess what's there? Estradiol. So those are like, they work they're in our joints, specifically estrogen receptors. And I mean, they're all over the place. They're really important for heart health. The only way to protect your heart is through oral estradiol, which is, we're not going to get into that, but basically you can get other things through, people use this patch and stuff like that. And what you want to do is with your hip pain, you may also want to look at DHEA, which is a hormone that can sometimes help with arthritic type of pains. Testosterone is also a really nice one that can help with the joint and pains as well. And so it's kind of getting and I say this, you're going to be like, oh, she's saying all the hormones. Well, because they all work together and they all work together. And so you have to be on progesterone. And, of course, some women may notice that, hey, I'm not able to work out as much. And that's actually what we struggle as women the most, is that we want to do all the lifestyle changes, but then we don't feel great because of our pain that we get or the fatigue that we get. And that's where that, thyroid is also something that we can do,
And just to add on, estradiol, of course, is like extremely important for bones. So hip pain, whether it's muscle or joints, estradiol will address the muscle aches and pains and joint pains, but also protect your bones.
Yeah. Oh, bones are huge for estradiol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at preventing osteoporosis. Estradiol is the only thing that builds bones up, not even the medications. They help you to prevent it from decreasing, but to build the bone, it's actually estradiol.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Lindsay.
Hi. Thank you so much. This whole conversation from beginning to end has just been awesome. And I actually was literally just talking with my mom, who commented that she remembers hitting this stage of life and she's like, nobody talked about it. Nobody told you what would happen or how to deal with it. So I just think it's awesome the conversation's taking place at all. I had a quick question for you. When I was younger, I suffered from migraines constantly. And then I went into having kids and those subsided. And those have kind of started to resurface again, which I know my mom experienced heading into perimenopause and menopause as well. So I take Imitrex for those when needed, but I know there's a conflict between Imitrex and HRT. So on some level. And so I was just curious, what is your recommendation for somebody who's struggling with migraines when it comes to possibly doing HRT?
Yeah, so the contradiction there is to do with more the synthetic, not actually the bioidentical. Their contradiction is to do with the cardiovascular specifically, and now there've been a lot of evidence to show that there's protection even with the synthetic estrogens, and so yeah, you know, a lot of people are worried about that's the worry, by the way, for the Imitrex and that. The other thing though is what can you do for migraines? Guess what? One of the things that they give you, although you're not going to, I'd rather you do progesterone, is really helps my migraine patients. We optimize their progesterone and they decrease their migraines like big time. And so it may be a hormonal thing that you can take a look at. Now, progestins are different than progesterone. I'm going to say that again. So progestins can also work for migraine. I just don't like the side effects compared to progesterone. So.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, I apologize. If you have more questions, please message us and we will get them answered. But these guys are parents and they have to go back to their lives too. So we're going to bring the slides up one more time, and I want you all to get contact information so that you can follow up. So this is the quality of life blueprint that Dr. Rattan was talking about. And you can also see her handles for her Instagram there. So please go follow and give her and maybe you can find him in there too. I'm sorry, I didn't collect that.
He doesn't have one, so you're good.
Oh, he doesn't have one. So you are one thing. Okay, so go give her some love on Instagram, and we just really appreciate you being here. And then we're going to go one more slide. And then you can also grab the guide here. So take a picture of this one so that you have it with all the supplementation we didn't get into, but we do suggest you start with protein and with the vitamins and with the collagen. So, all right, you guys, this has been a fantastic night. Thank you so much for all being here. Obviously, this is a hot topic. We will probably do this again, but hopefully you learned something and we really appreciate you being here. So have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.